nonprofit radio coverage of 18NTC, the Nonprofit Technology Conference coming to you from the Convention Center in New Orleans, Louisiana. All of our NTC interviews are sponsored by Network for Good, easy-to-use donor management and fundraising software for nonprofits. My guests are Carie Carlson. Carlson? My voice cracked on Carlson. She's the owner of CLC Consulting. And Lara Koch, Associate Director of Online Fundraising at Smithsonian Institutions. Welcome, ladies.
Hi, Tony. How are you?
Pleasure to have you both. I'm doing well. Thank you for asking.
Thanks for having us.
Not too many people ask how I'm doing. Good. Have you done your session already?
Yes. We have,
okay,
yeah.
You're on the downside. All right.
Yep.
Yes.
All right.
It's all fun from here on out.
Exactly. More alcohol. And your session topic is Real Talk, how I got my leadership team to listen to me. All right. Buy-in.
Yes.
Leadership.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay. From your session description, you had a quote, I get it, it's my boss that doesn't.
Exactly.
And if that's you talking, this session is for you. Okay, Lara, let's start with you. Why do we need this topic?
This topic came out of an NTC that Carie and I were at 2 years ago, the one in San Jose. There was a session on the last day that turned into basically a big therapy session about the work we do and how hard it is and the things that no one really talks about.
Do you remember, Nonprofit Radio, was that the 16 NTC?
Yes.
Do you remember
I don't, unfortunately.
Interesting that you don't remember the topic.
I don't remember the topic.
Remember what came out of it.
What the tangent was.
Exactly.
That took over the... took over the room.
And there was one quote, and I wish I knew who to attribute it to from that session, where someone said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And it really stuck with us. And this, it came out over and over about the things that we struggle with. And, executive buy-in is something that comes up in almost every session you're in, but it's a mystery. It feels like, just get the executive buy-in, everything will be okay. But how? How is it possible? And I feel like Carie and I are living proof that it is possible. It's a lot of hard work, and it's and there are strategies that we've both employed to make things happen.
Okay, Carie, you want to add something to the introductory remarks?
Sure. So like Lara said, every single time we speak at a conference together, how to get your boss to let you do the things you want to do.
You've covered this topic multiple times together.
Yeah.
Even if the session doesn't start out with that, it ends there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's and most people are sitting in there, they're listening to all these great ideas. They can't wait to go back and implement them, but they've got to get the budget, the time, whatever it is, and they don't know how to do it. And so that's why we wanted to talk about this. And like Lara said, it's something that people don't want to talk about because it could sound like complaining or, but we tried to give people actual strategies that we have used to be able to get the buy-in to do a lot of the great things we've been able to do together.
Okay, excellent. So you ladies are the buy-in mavens.
We try.
Sure.
the buy-in matrons. No, not matrons. I'm trying to think of a good alliteration to go with buy-in. The buy-in. You're not brothers. That's too bad. Okay.
I feel like we could use a word, but I'm not sure we can say it on nonprofit radio.
We can say buy-in, bitches.
Okay,
that's perfect.
That's us.
I love it. Sold. And 1019.
Awesome. Okay.
We'll be back.
It'll be the hashtag for the session.
Yes.
19NTC.
Tony, you are setting us up.
Please do. Oh, you're coming back.
Yes.
Oh, you're coming back.
We are coming back.
19 radio. Nonprofit radio. Okay. Good thinking, Lara. Okay. Okay. We got tactics. We got strategies. All right. So the problem is, we feel so passionately about something, but we just can't convince the boss. Is that it?
Yes.
Is it always the C-level, or it might even just be our immediate?
Totally,
right?
yes.
Our immediate supervisor?
Because, they're getting that pressure from the executives. They're the ones often in more direct contact with them. And so when you bring an idea to them, their thought goes, they're having the same thought, is I'm going to have to tell my boss how to accomplish this, how to get this done. And often, that immediate negativity or that immediate reactive no is the first thing you hear.
Yeah.
And people have trouble asking for what they need.
And then can I just say, it's so hard to overcome that initial no.
Yes.
Like, wait, but you hardly even heard anything. I hardly even made my case yet, and it's already a no. And then to try to overcome that, it's very hard.
And because nonprofits tend to be such a hierarchy, and there's so much emotion and passion in the work we do, many people hear that no and they back off.
Yeah,
They're done.
Carie, you were making a point that I interrupted. Go ahead, please.
Well, I also wanted to say, like, one of the things that I was able to show was that I was able to get that full-on buy-in relationship, the trust, all of that with my immediate boss when I was at HSUS, and he was really an advocate and backed me up on a lot of my ideas that were able to sell to the executives, which were much harder. And I admitted this in the session. I never fully got that buy-in and goal agreement and all those things with our executive suite in the 11 years I was there.
Yeah.
There was just there was different priorities, different
Generations.
I was going to say that, but
You could say that. Why not?
no, it's true. I think
We already
generational
said bitches. We can distinguish across age if we can say bitches.
generational shifts in the workplace. Nonprofits are so unprepared for this, and it is hurting them now because they don't know. Like, our generation doesn't know how to relate to our C-level executives who have been there for 20 years, and they have different way of looking at things, different priorities, and it causes this clash.
Okay. All right. Let's get into some of our tactics.
Great.
Tactics, strategies. We could use those interchangeably, or do you distinguish?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Lara, let's start.
The number one thing, and this came up on every slide that we did, was being relentless about being in people's faces and having a shtick, basically. Every time you're in a meeting, you're repeating the same stats and you're asking the same things over and over.
So you need consistency in your own messaging.
Yes, exactly.
And not giving up.
Right.
When you hear no. That was
Okay.
one thing. I think that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. It's like, my boss says no, well, I'm not going to challenge them. Oh, but you should,
Yes.
because you have good ideas and you need to advocate for them.
And you're the ones in the trenches. You're the ones doing the work. You're the ones in conferences like this. You're seeing what your colleagues are doing in the space, and you want to apply those things. And that no without a no but or a no and I think that's where Carie and I got the idea of basically going in really prepared. Anticipating questions and pushback, anticipating the no, and coming up with strategies to say, here's how we're going to do it. Here's what we're going to do if we fail. Here's what we're going to do if we're going to succeed. And then if you hear that no, is it okay? Can I just try it once and we see how it goes? Can we test it? Because the data will out. And I told the group, like, I love when tests fail. I want to be wrong because then I can let it go. I can say, okay, I thought it would work. It didn't.
Okay.
I'm going to let it go. And that's why, but at least we got to try.
Then how do you feel with respect to your relationship with your boss after you advocated for something and it failed?
Oh, I can talk about that.
Please.
This happens a lot, and it's so important to be comfortable with and accepting and saying that it's fine that it failed, but here's what we learned, and we'll do this differently next time. Last Giving Tuesday, right before I left.
But I want to focus on your relationship with your boss.
Right.
You pushed, and let's say there was an initial no, and then taking your advice, you challenged it, you got a buy-in for a test, it failed, but you were the advocate for the failure.
Yeah.
And how do you feel about the impingement on your relationship with your boss? How do you deal with your boss after that? That's what I want to get at.
Well, it depends. Like that's kind of where the early work of developing the relationship and the trust and all of that with your boss and your executives or whoever the decision maker is so important because I had a good relationship with my boss and I had spent years on goal agreement and trust and brainstorming and all of these things that connected us. He is of the mindset of, okay, well, here are all the great ideas you've had and executed. One that didn't work, it's bound to happen. And I think that oversimplifies it, but that homework of developing that relationship with your boss ahead of time.
The value of the long-term relationship.
Yes,
Yeah.
and building on those small, easy wins, if that's what you need to lay that groundwork, but and taking ownership of your failures. Carie has a great example that she was going to mention about Giving Tuesday, where she was convinced something was going to work. They put it into practice. It did fail, and Carie took ownership. She said, "I thought this would work. It didn't. Here's what we learned. Here's what we're going to do."
Instead of getting
next
defensive
You were going to tell the Giving Tuesday, but I interrupted you.
No, it's
So,
okay. So I
know it's okay. I mean, I'm the host. I know it's
exactly.
okay.
This is your thing.
I don't need permission.
Right.
But I'm acknowledging it. Let's leave it there. You don't have to beat me up
All right,
over it.
all right.
Let's move on.
Okay,
Yeah, move
really,
on.
Really?
So I came up with the idea of giving away little portable dog bowls if you got your donation in ahead of time for Giving Tuesday. As we found from years past that some people do want to get their gifts in early, which I find strange, but they have their reasons, and the data showed that. So I said,
And where were you with the dog bowl? What kind of organization were you? Why
with-
were dog bowls?
with the Humane Society.
Oh, Humane Society.
Yeah.
Okay.
So naturally, I was like this. I was really excited about it. Well, they gave away maybe 100 of them. There are still 3,000 of them in someone's cube at HSUS. And I was like, guys, I thought this was going to work, and it didn't. Don't do it next year.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And they're not going to.
Okay.
But we did it, and
That's not. Wait, that's not the reason you're no longer at Humane
I hope
Society, is
not.
it?
No.
That Giving Tuesday debacle. No. Okay.
But
good.
I know those
Okay.
bowls are still sitting
Yeah,
in someone's
they are
cube.
somewhere.
Well, and we
It's a
were
very pet-friendly organization.
Yes,
It's-
yeah, they'll get
the
used to them
office- the
somehow.
They will
office
get
is,
used.
Yeah.
And we were both honest in our session that, we had those wins, we had those failures, but in the end, both of us did leave. We both worked at the Humane Society together.
Oh, okay.
Both of us did leave because in the end, we made some progress, but, it wasn't enough. And those battles with our executives did wear us down eventually.
And the first question that somebody asked at the end of this session was, how do you deal with all of this work and all of this emotional toll that this obviously takes on someone to be constantly fighting for your ideas and your staff and all of that? Like Lara said, we both ended up leaving for this reason, because you've got to know when you can't do any more.
Right. And that's the thing. Again, we're all here for causes. We're all here because we're passionate people. Our jobs are so emotional, full of so much emotional labor, which I think makes nonprofit work really interesting.
Because you care.
Right. And that is, like I said, that's where all of our sessions, especially when we present together, tend to end up, because, we're proud of what we've accomplished. We've had some incredible wins, some incredible successes, but, that work is constant, and because nonprofit online and digital marketing and fundraising changes every single day, it is not something like a digital direct mail where it's pretty consistent. It's pretty, nothing really changes there. Facebook works one day. Based on what's going on right now, who knows what's going to happen for Facebook tomorrow?
Right, the platforms do change. All right, let's go into more strategies. You got one, Carie?
Well, I touched on this, but one of the biggest kind of strategies for me was getting that visibility. I was relentless about getting into staff meetings and executive meetings and being that person that they recognize, so that when I came knocking on the door asking for something, they were like, well, Carie has good ideas and she is smart and well respected or whatever. So I told the audience, like, if you're one of those people that wants to work from home 4 days a week, you're going to have trouble selling your ideas, because you've got to be around, and the executives need to know you, and with that comes trust and build a repertoire and all of that.
That's interesting. My last conversation was just about virtual employees and having a virtual organization. So you feel like in this realm, virtual employees are at a disadvantage?
If they are in leadership roles where they're selling ideas and managing staff, and look, like flexibility, it was the number one reason why I stayed so long where I was. I'm a mom. I want to be able to do things on my own time. But if I was not there pushing for what I wanted, advocating for my staff, them knowing who I was, because that's how our management was. It was very management by walking around. Like you have to be seen there.
Being seen was important.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's another thing where that generational shift really comes into play. Maybe we'll all be remote employees, 15 years from now, but right now in the nonprofit space, where again that hierarchy is so deeply grooved in, it's being visible, and
the point that the two women who were just in the last interview made was, it depends on organizational culture.
Yeah.
Yes.
Even that.
That's what this is all about.
That even trumps age.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
If the organization has a culture that empowers virtual employees, then they may not have be at the disadvantage that you're talking about, Carie.
Exactly, you're right.
It's organizational culture.
Yep.
But,
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get more strategies for challenging your boss. Or you suggested maybe it's a no and or a no but. We can test.
Right.
So that covers sort of the challenge of the overcoming the no. What other tactics, strategies?
You should talk about data because you're the data queen.
Yeah, I mean, it all goes back to data. And I think a point, having that data, having those stats at the tip of your tongue, those stats that you're repeating all the time, and, getting... Executives love numbers. Very often they don't love the same numbers that we love. They're very focused on different numbers. So it's focused on using numbers that mean something to them. Of course, a lot of those are budget numbers and revenue and opportunity costs. Carie has done a lot of work where, for redesigning the website, for example, when we were able to work with the vendor that's redesigning that website and identify this is the money we're leaving on the table right now.
We're having an old website.
Right. Those stats make sense to our executives. Even if vanity metrics, which breaks both mine and Carrie's heart, vanity social metrics, but if you can weave those in with the data that also matters.
Is relevant.
Exactly. It's
and
that
you train them over time. They will care about.
It's that spoonful of sugar that makes the medicine go down.
Well, we do have 12,000 followers. Okay, so weave that in a little bit. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
We an example that we
give them some of what they want.
Capture their
and
attention.
More of what they need,
Right?
Because what if you're the data expert in the organization, what's germane.
Yes.
So give them a little of what they want and more of what they need.
And percentages.
Yes, and percentage, exactly. Because, for example, Smithsonian redesigned their website last year, and I was able to get a donation button on the website, which is a big win. In the first 6 weeks of that donation button being on the site, we saw a 6,000% increase in donations.
Yes.
Those numbers were super tiny, but 6,000%, mentioned casually to my boss in the hallway, made me look like a superstar. Yeah. And then they could repeat that elsewhere. But it's being, an example, one of our favorite examples was what we consider our magnum opus at the Humane Society was our first Day of Giving. And Day of Giving came as a directive and says, we see universities doing Days of Giving everywhere, just do one, and it has to be unrestricted. We love unrestricted fundraising, but we knew a Day of Giving out of nowhere in the middle of what is our biggest lull month around spring, March, was going to be a hard sell. We knew we had a restricted program that touched on all the things that our constituents loved at HSUS, being pets, being people's relationship with their pets, helping people in underserved communities get vet care for their pets. We put together a PowerPoint that laid everything out from start to finish, including a mixture of vanity metrics and actual metrics, and things like, here's what we do if we fail, here's what we do if we succeed. We went in armed to the teeth, saying, okay, we'll do this, but this is how we're going to do it. And we did, and also that we need to go dark in everything else we're doing so we can launch this huge campaign just mere months after our year-end fundraising campaign. We went in like an army, and we were able to get that message through.
This
because
was the two of you?
Yes.
It was the bitches?
It was the bitches.
And we did it.
Right.
And we did it, and it was a huge success.
It was $500,000.
Yes, and repeating that in other ways, through other campaigns, has allowed us to just, go in almost with an impenetrable armor and confidence.
Confidence. That's a tough one for a lot of people.
Yeah. Talk about it more. Why is it so important?
Well, I think because people are afraid of being told no, or that's a bad idea, or they're just afraid of the rejection piece of it, or failing. And if you don't have that culture of innovation and trust and all of that, that can be really intimidating. But I think after a while, we start to gain our confidence after we have good ideas and we implement them and they work and we want to do more.
Yes.
But I think that's a hard one for a lot of people to have that confidence to go in and say, we're going to do this, or to your boss, no, that's a terrible idea, which.
Yeah. And we had 6-7 people come up to us after and tell their own individual stories of their immovable CEOs. And they thanked us for what we talked about, but still, you could see the fear in their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
You could, and that breaks my heart because again, these are people we are doing mission-based work, and we know how we can do it better because we are doing it every single day.
And that's the confidence you need to go in with.
Yes.
Yeah.
You need to embrace that.
Yes.
Yeah, and say we are going to do this. Like when I decided that it was time to pick up the website redesign at HSUS, I went to my boss and I said, I'm going to do this year. I know the money's there. we're going to make this happen, and I need an outside project manager. I didn't go in and say, hey, I'd really like to redesign the website. What do you think? And that also helped him, because it's like, I'm not going to him. That was another one of our tactics. Go in with a solution, not just a problem. And that takes a lot of the weight and a lot of the monkey off your boss's back. And that builds trust too, because it's like, they've got this.
Now you brought me a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and my boss used to always say that to me. Come
no.
to me with a solution, not a problem. And then that really also developed that relationship of trust, because he knew that I would handle things.
Yes.
Now, is CLC working with Smithsonian?
We are not. We are
not
just
working together anymore?
Not yet. I will say yet. Hopefully in the future. But
okay, you're trying to get her in?
I would love that, because she's
clearly.
a dynamo. But the bond that we formed working together allowed us to kind of build that confidence off of one another. We both have different strengths, and we were able to move mountains at a place that is, like I said, it's
old school.
It's old school.
Yeah. Now it sounds like you suffered together. There's this recognized social science concept. I learned it as a brotherhood of suffering, but it can equally apply as a sisterhood of suffering. Prison isn't. I don't mean to analogize HSUS to prison, but prison is an example.
We'll take it. It's fine.
Okay. I have something I want to chat with you after, because I know somebody very senior there. So prison. Imagine what you're suffering together, and the common suffering, day in, day out, creates a bond.
Yes.
It sounds like that.
Well, that was another one of our tactics. Was creating
don't hold back on nonprofit.
Creating a mini culture within our department of trust and all of the things that we wish we had as a larger organization. You build them within the department, and you do create this bond. And
so work within your microcosm.
Yes, and manage down, manage up, but also manage down like you wish you were being managed down upon.
Yeah.
Encourage people to come to ideas. Let them know it's okay to fail. Let them know that they're doing different work than we are as their managers, so they're seeing things that we're not seeing. Like something I tell my team now at the Smithsonian is, if I want you to come to me and say, if my plate was clear, this is what I would be focusing on, because I know this would move the needle.
Don't you wish one of our executives would have ever said anything like that to us?
Because I would give him I would roll out the scroll. It would roll down the hallway.
Red carpet.
Exactly. Yeah. But I want to hear that, because I'm spinning so many plates all the time, trying to be in this middle management role like I am, and I want to be able to that my team feels empowered to do that. And I think right now there are still ceilings that prevent that, and the nonprofits again have. We tend to respect the CEOs as being, and that C-level as, the end-all, be-all.
Right.
And they're not. We were able to do in our world, and I think this is especially true for nonprofit marketing and fundraising, is that, it's if you're not living it, you're not truly understanding it. And until executives see that and give you that leeway, and you're negotiating with them constantly about what you're doing and what you can do, only then do you even start to inch forward.
Another thing I did while I was in a leadership role at HSUS, it sounds kind of silly, but I gave each one of my employees their birthday off. And that's really cool. They get to have an extra day off and whatnot. But what it's really about is showing that I trust them enough to take a day off, that they're still going to get their work done. And that's the kind of like an example of the kind of thing that was in our control. You would never get your birthday off, I think, as an overall level there. That's just, it's a culture of like a lot of nonprofits. Work always on.
You need to be seen.
Yes.
You were saying before, Lara, you need to be seen.
But our employees knew that we trusted them enough that they could take a day off. And I was adamant. And the question that came at the end about how do you deal with all of this, the emotional labor that goes into it, it's about creating that balance, being relentless about self-care and work-life balance. Like, it is achievable. A lot of times we do it to ourselves because we care so much. But creating boundaries with your team, your executives, that's what you have to do in order to keep doing all of this work.
Also, this idea, please please don't lose that thought. This idea of doing as much as you can within what you do have within your purview.
Yes,
exactly. Do as much as you can for the people you do have authority over. Yeah, please.
Yeah, advocating for your staff.
That's exactly what I was going to say, is being relentless and going back to that repetition. A badge of honor that I wear is I was in a meeting recently with a strategic planning meeting with a lot of different people, of course, the organization, many of them higher level from me. And at one point, someone stopped me and said, "We know how you feel about email collection, Lara." And I was like, "Great, I'm glad you do. It's because I've been saying it nonstop. So even if you're annoyed with me for saying it every time, you're finally listening to me, because you know what's not happening at the Smithsonian? Email collection." So let's talk about that. And luckily I feel like Carie and I are good with people, so we tend to not come off as harsh. We tend to come off more as just assertive versus aggressive. But I've had to learn that assertiveness in my work life because it didn't come naturally to me. It's something that I learned, and once I saw the progress I was able to make by getting in people's faces, being super, straight and blunt and repetitious, and making that eye contact with them, it's a skill that I've tried to learn, and I've tried to give to my team as well, because we're all in these cruise ships, and we're trying to make these turns all the time, and things move very, very, very slow.
And trying to avoid sinking.
Yes, avoid those icebergs.
Trying to avoid a bow shot.
Yes.
Okay. We're going to leave it there. You two are terrific.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
I love your energy.
It was a pleasure.
I feel the bond between you.
Yes.
They're the buy-in bitches.
Buy-in bitches. Peace out.
You heard it here first. They are Carie Carlson, owner of CLC Consulting, and Lara Koch, Associate Director of Online Fundraising at Smithsonian Institution. We are nonprofit radio covering 18 NTC, and this interview sponsored by Network for Good, easy-to-use donor management and fundraising software for nonprofits. Ladies, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
My pleasure, too. Thank you very much for being with our coverage.